What would you do if the person you loved most in the world had only one day to live and all the money in the world could not save them? If you're enjoying this story, please like, share, and subscribe. We love hearing from you. So tell us in the comments where you're watching from. The Hawthorne mansion stood like a giant wedding cake at the top of the hill. Its white walls sparkled in the sunlight. Golden gates guarded the entrance. Inside, there were rooms bigger than most people's houses. Crystal lights hung from the ceiling like frozen waterfalls. The floors were so shiny you could see your face in them. But on this terrible day, all that beauty meant nothing. Mr. Richard Hawthorne was the richest man in the city. He owned banks and hotels and buildings that touched the clouds. People called him Sir and bowed their heads when he walked past. He wore suits that cost more than a car. His shoes were made in Italy. His watch could buy a small house. But right now, Mr. Hawthorne was crying. His baby son, Thomas, lay in a small bed in the biggest bedroom. The baby was only 6 months old. His skin, which used to be pink and healthy, now looked gray like old paper. His tiny chest moved up and down so slowly. Each breath seemed like it might be his last. Around the bed stood 5 doctors. They were the best doctors money could buy. They came from different countries. They had fancy degrees hanging on their office walls. They had saved kings and presidents and movie stars. But they could not save baby Thomas. "I'm sorry, Mr. Hawthorne," said Dr. Chun, the head doctor. His voice was soft and sad. "We have done everything. We have tried every medicine. We have called specialists from around the world. The infection in his blood is too strong. His little body is too weak to fight anymore. How long?" Mr. Hawthorne's voice cracked like breaking glass. Dr. Chin looked down at his expensive shoes. "Maybe 1 day, perhaps less." Mrs. Hawthorne, the baby's mother, had fainted 2 hours ago. The nurses took her to another room. She could not bear to watch her son die. Mr. Hawthorne fell into his leather chair. His face was buried in his hands. For the first time in his life, his money was useless. His power meant nothing. His name could not command death to go away. In the corner of the room, almost invisible, stood Maria. She was a maid. She had worked in the mansion for 3 years. She cleaned the floors and washed the clothes and cooked the meals. She was paid little, but she was grateful for the job. She had a son to feed. Maria's heart was breaking. She had taken care of baby Thomas. Since he was born, she had fed him when he was hungry. She had sung to him when he cried. She had watched him smile his first smile. To her, he was not just a rich man's son. He was a child of God, precious and loved. Tears rolled down Maria's brown cheeks. Her hands were folded together. Her lips moved in silent prayer. The doctors began packing their bags. There was nothing more to do. They would come back in the morning to sign the papers. Papers that said the baby had died. As they walked toward the door, Maria suddenly spoke. Her voice was small and shaking. "Sir, please, may I ask something?" Mr. Hawthorne looked up. His eyes were red and swollen. He barely saw Maria most days. She was just part of the furniture to him. But today, he was too tired to be angry. "What is it?" he said. Maria's hands twisted together nervously. "My son, sir. He is outside. He heard about baby Thomas. He wants to pray for him." Mr. Hawthorne stared at her. For a moment, he said nothing. Then he let out a bitter laugh. It was a horrible sound, like a door creaking in an empty house. "Your son wants to pray? These doctors cannot save my boy. But your son thinks prayer will work." His voice got louder. "Where is your God now, Maria? If he is so powerful, why is my son dying?" The doctors looked uncomfortable. One of them coughed. Another checked his phone. Maria's voice was steady, even though her heart was pounding. "God can do what medicine cannot, sir. My son has faith, strong faith. Please, sir, what do you have to lose?" Mr. Hawthorne opened his mouth to shout at her, to tell her to get out, to never speak such foolish words again. But then he looked at his son. Baby Thomas lay so still. His little fingers were curled into tiny fists. His eyes were closed. He looked like he was already gone. What did he have to lose? "Fine," Mr. Hawthorne said, his voice empty and flat. Bring your son. Let him pray. When it changes nothing, maybe you will finally be quiet." Maria nodded quickly. She rushed out of the room. Her heart was beating like a drum. She ran down the long hallway. Her shoes clicked on the marble floor. She pushed open the side door that led to the garden. There, sitting under a tree, was her son. Samuel was 9 years old. He was small for his age, thin like a young tree. His clothes were old and had patches on the knees. His shoes had holes in them. Sometimes he went barefoot to make the shoes last longer. His hair was messy and his face was dirty from playing outside, but his eyes were bright, clear, full of something that could not be bought in any store. "Mama?" Samuel stood up when he saw her. "Come," Maria said, taking his hand. "Come quickly." Mr. Hawthorne said yes. "You can pray for the baby." Samuel nodded. He did not look surprised. He did not look scared. He simply followed his mother back into the mansion. They walked through the grand hallways. Samuel had never been inside before. Maid's children were not allowed in the house. He stared at the paintings on the walls. He looked up at the sparkling lights. Everything was so big and bright and beautiful. But he did not stop to admire it. There was work to do. When they entered the bedroom, everyone turned to look. The doctors raised their eyebrows. Mr. Hawthorne sat slumped in his chair, watching with dead eyes. Samuel walked slowly to the baby's bed. His bare feet made no sound on the thick carpet. He looked so small next to all the tall adults in their fancy clothes. He stood beside baby Thomas and looked down at the dying child. For a long moment, Samuel just watched him, watched the slow, painful breathing, watched the gray skin, watched death hovering like a shadow. Then Samuel did something strange. He smiled. It was a gentle, knowing smile, as if he could see something no one else could see. He knelt down beside the bed. His thin knees pressed against the soft carpet. He reached out with one small hand and placed it gently on the baby's chest. The room became very quiet. Even the machines seemed to hum more softly. Samuel closed his eyes. His lips began to move, and he started to pray. Samuel's prayer was not loud. It was not fancy. He did not use big words or long sentences. He spoke the way a child speaks to someone he loves and trusts completely. "Dear God," Samuel whispered, his hand still resting on baby Thomas's chest. "This little baby is sick. The doctors try to help him, but they cannot. Only you can help him now. Please, God, please let him live. His mama and papa love him so much. Please show them that you are real. Please show them that you care. I believe you can do this. I believe with all my heart. In Jesus' name, amen." That was it. Simple words from a simple boy. Mr. Hawthorne almost laughed again. This was a great prayer? This was supposed to save his son? He had expected something powerful, something magical. But it was just a poor boy whispering to the air. The doctors looked at each other. One of them glanced at his watch. Another shifted his weight from foot to foot. They were ready to leave. This was uncomfortable. They were men of science, not superstition. Maria stood with her hands clasped together, tears streaming down her face. She believed. She had always believed. She had raised Samuel to believe. And now she was watching her faith being tested in front of all these important people. Samuel stayed kneeling. His eyes were still closed. His hand remained on the baby's chest. And then something changed. At first, it was so small that no one noticed. Samuel's hand began to feel warm. Not burning hot, but gently warm, like sunshine on skin. The warmth spread from his palm into the baby's chest. Samuel felt it. His eyes were still closed, but he could feel something happening. It felt like electricity, but softer. Like water flowing, but invisible. Like love, if love could be touched. Baby Thomas twitched. It was tiny, just a small movement of his left hand. But Maria saw it. Her breath caught in her throat. "Did you see that?" she whispered. Mr. Hawthorne looked up sharply. "See what?" "His hand. It moved." "Babies twitch sometimes when they're dying," Dr. Chin said gently. "It does not mean anything." But then the baby's fingers uncurled. Slowly, like a flower opening in the morning. His tiny hand, which had been clenched into a fist, relaxed and opened. The machines beside the bed began to beep differently. The numbers on the screen started to change. The heart rate, which had been slow and weak, began to get stronger. Beep, beep, beep. Each sound a little louder, a little steadier. Dr. Chin stepped closer to the machines. His eyes went wide. "That's impossible," he muttered. Another doctor rushed to the baby's side. She pulled out her stethoscope and listened to his chest. Her mouth fell open. "His breathing," she said, her voice shaking. "It's getting stronger." Samuel kept praying. His lips moved with words only God could hear. His hand stayed on the baby's chest. The warmth continued to flow. Baby Thomas's skin began to change. The gray color started to fade. Pink appeared on his cheeks, like paint spreading across a canvas. His lips, which had been pale and blue, turned red and healthy. "This cannot be happening," Dr. Chin said, but he could not look away. None of them could. Mr. Hawthorne stood up from his chair. He stumbled forward, almost falling. His legs felt weak. He stared at his son with eyes that could not believe what they were seeing. The baby's chest rose and fell more deeply now. His breathing was no longer shallow and struggling. It was smooth and natural, the way a healthy baby breathes. And then, as everyone watched in complete silence, baby Thomas opened his eyes. They were bright and clear and blue, like the sky after rain. He looked around the room with the curious gaze of a child seeing the world. His eyes landed on Samuel's face, and the baby smiled. It was a real smile, a happy smile, the smile of a child who felt good and safe and loved. Samuel opened his eyes and smiled back. "Hello, little one," he whispered. "God heard us." The room exploded with noise. The doctors rushed forward, checking the baby with their instruments. They listened to his heart. They checked his temperature. They looked at his eyes and his skin and his fingers and toes. Everything was normal, better than normal. The baby was completely healthy. How is this possible? Dr. Chin kept saying over and over, the infection was too severe. He should be dead. He was dying. I saw it with my own eyes. This is medically impossible. But impossible was happening right in front of them. Maria fell to her knees beside Samuel. She wrapped her arms around her son and sobbed into his shoulder. "Thank you, God," she cried. "Thank you, thank you, thank you." Samuel hugged his mother back. He was tired, very tired. The prayer had taken something from him, some energy he could not explain. But he was happy, so very happy. Mr. Hawthorne stood frozen beside the bed. His son was alive. His son, who had been hours from death, was now reaching up with tiny hands, making the soft cooing sounds that healthy babies make. Mr. Hawthorne picked up his son. He held him close to his chest. He could feel the strong heartbeat. He could feel the warmth of life. Tears poured down his face, soaking into the baby's blanket. "My son," he whispered. "My son is alive." He looked at Samuel, the poor boy with the patched clothes and bare feet, the child he had mocked just minutes ago, the boy he had thought was foolish. "How did you do this?" Mr. Hawthorne asked, his voice breaking. Samuel stood up slowly. He was so tired his legs shook a little, but he looked Mr. Hawthorne straight in the eyes. "I did not do it, sir," Samuel said quietly. "God did it. I just asked him, and I believed he would answer. But why?" Mr. Hawthorne's voice was desperate now. "Why would God listen to you? You are just a child. You have nothing. You own nothing. Why not listen to me? I have everything." Samuel's answer was simple and true. God does not care about money, sir. He cares about faith. He cares about love. He listens to anyone who truly believes. The words hit Mr. Hawthorne like a hammer. His whole life, he had believed that money was power, that wealth was the answer to every problem, that being rich made him better than other people. But a poor boy had just saved his son's life. A poor boy with nothing but faith had done what all his money could not do. The doctors were calling hospitals. They were talking about tests and examinations and medical journals. This would be the story of the century in medical science. A miracle they cannot explain. But Mr. Hawthorne was not thinking about medical journals. He was looking at Samuel, really looking at him for the first time. And he was seeing something he had never seen before. Something money could never buy. Grace. Pure, simple grace. A nurse ran into the room. Sir, it's your wife, Mrs. Hawthorne. She has woken up. She's asking about the baby. Mr. Hawthorne's heart leaped. He ran from the room, still carrying baby Thomas. The doctors followed. Maria and Samuel stayed behind, holding each other. When Mrs. Hawthorne saw her son, pink and healthy and alive, she screamed with joy. She took him in her arms and kissed his face over and over. She could not stop crying, could not stop thanking God. The mansion, which had been filled with the shadow of death, was now bursting with life and light and laughter. And outside in the garden, the sun broke through the clouds. Birds began to sing. The flowers seemed to bloom brighter. It was as if all of nature was celebrating with them. Samuel sat under his tree again, his tired body resting against the trunk. His mother brought him water and bread. He ate slowly, quietly, his heart full of peace. He had done what God asked him to do, and that was enough. If you're loving this story, please hit that like button, share it with someone who needs to hear this, and subscribe so you never miss our stories. Drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from. We truly love hearing from you. The news of the miracle spread through the city like wildfire. Newspapers wrote about it. Television reporters came to the mansion gates. People gathered outside, hoping to catch a glimpse of the boy who had prayed a baby back to life. But Samuel did not want attention. He stayed in the small cottage behind the mansion where he and his mother lived. He played with his old toys. He helped his mother hang laundry. He went to his little school and studied his lessons. He was the same Samuel as before, humble, quiet, kind. But Mr. Hawthorne was not the same man. 3 days after the miracle, he called Maria and Samuel to the main house. They walked the grand hallway together, holding hands. Maria was nervous. She wondered if Mr. Hawthorne was angry about all the attention. She wondered if he would send them away. They entered the big sitting room. Mr. Hawthorne stood by the window, looking out at the garden. Baby Thomas was in his arms, giggling and grabbing at his father's tie. When Mr. Hawthorne turned around, Maria saw something different in his face. The hardness was gone. The pride was gone. His eyes were softer now, almost gentle. "Please sit down," he said, pointing to the fancy sofa. Maria and Samuel sat carefully on the edge, afraid to mess up the expensive furniture. Mr. Hawthorne sat across from them. He looked at Samuel for a long moment. Then he spoke, and his voice was thick with emotion. "Samuel, I have been thinking about what you said, about faith, about God caring more about belief than money." He paused, struggling with the words. "My whole life, I thought I was powerful because I was rich. I thought money could solve any problem. I thought it made me better than other people." He looked down at his son. "But when Thomas was dying, I learned the truth. All my money was worthless. All my power meant nothing. I was helpless." He looked back at Samuel. "You, a boy with nothing, saved my son. You did what I could not do." Tears filled his eyes. "I was wrong. About everything. About what matters. About who matters. About God." Samuel's voice was soft but clear. "God loves everyone the same, sir, rich or poor, big or small. He just wants us to believe in him, to trust him, to love each other." Mr. Hawthorne nodded. "I want to change. I want to be different. I want to use my money for good now, not just for myself. Will you help me? Will you teach me about faith?" Samuel smiled. It was a warm, bright smile of a child who sees goodness growing. "I will try, sir, but God is the real teacher. I just listen to him." From that day forward, everything changed at the Hawthorne mansion. Mr. Hawthorne started going to church. At first, people stared. The rich man who never prayed was now sitting in the front row every Sunday, listening carefully to every word. He started reading the Bible. He asked questions. He learned to pray. Maria was no longer treated like a servant. Mr. Hawthorne insisted she eat meals with the family. She had her own room in the main house. He'd paid her 10 times what she used to earn. But more than that, he treated her like family, like a sister. Samuel became like a son to Mr. Hawthorne. The millionaire paid for Samuel to go to the best school in the city. He bought him new clothes and good shoes. But Samuel still preferred to go barefoot sometimes, and Mr. Hawthorne learned not to mind. But the biggest changes happened outside the mansion. Mr. Hawthorne used his wealth to build a free hospital for poor people. Anyone could come and get medicine and treatment without paying a single coin. He named it Thomas Samuel Hospital, after his son and the boy who saved him. He built clean water wells in neighborhoods where children got sick from dirty water. He opened food centers where hungry families could eat for free. He paid for schools where poor children could learn. The mansion itself changed, too. Once a week, Mr. Hawthorne opened the gates to anyone who wanted to come and pray. Rich and poor, young and old, they all gathered in the big garden. Samuel would stand on the steps and share simple messages about faith and love. And Mr. Hawthorne would stand beside him, no longer ashamed to learn from a child. 6 months after the first miracle, something else happened. Mrs. Hawthorne became very sick. The doctors said she had a tumor in her brain. They said it was too dangerous to operate. They said she might not survive. Mr. Hawthorne could have panicked. He could have gone back to his old ways, trying to buy a cure. But he had learned. He had changed. Instead, he called Samuel. "Will you pray for my wife?" he asked. There was no demand in his voice, no expectation, just hope and humility. Samuel nodded. "We will pray together." That night, in Mrs. Hawthorne's bedroom, everyone gathered. Mr. Hawthorne, Maria, the house staff, even some of the doctors who had stayed in touch. They formed a circle around her bed. And this time, Mr. Hawthorne prayed too. His prayer was simple, like Samuel had taught him. "God, please heal my wife. I believe you can. I trust you. Whatever happens, I will still believe in you." Samuel added his prayer. Maria added hers. One by one, everyone in the room prayed. Some prayed out loud. Some prayed silently. But every prayer rose up like smoke toward heaven. The next morning, Mrs. Hawthorne woke up with no pain. The doctors rushed to examine her. They did new tests, new scans. They looked at the images over and over, confused and amazed. The tumor was gone, completely gone, as if it had never been there. Dr. Chun, who had witnessed both miracles now, sat down in a chair and put his head in his hands. "I have been a doctor for 30 years, he said quietly. "I thought I understood how the body works. But I do not understand this. This is beyond science. This is beyond medicine." He looked at Samuel with wonder and respect. "This is God." Samuel smiled gently. "Yes, sir, it is always God." The city could no longer ignore what was happening. People began to call the Hawthorne Mansion the House of Miracles. Sick people came hoping to be healed. Sad people came hoping to find peace. Lost people came hoping to find purpose. And they found it, not because the mansion was magical, not because Samuel had special powers, but because faith lived there now. Real, honest, humble faith. Years passed. Baby Thomas grew into a healthy, happy boy. He loved to sit with Samuel and hear stories about God. He grew up humble despite his wealth, kind despite his privilege. Mr. Hawthorne became known not as the richest man in the city, but as the most generous. He gave away more than half his fortune to help others. And the strange thing was, the more he gave, the happier he became. The emptiness that money had never filled was now overflowing with joy. Maria lived to see her son grow into a young man. Samuel never became rich. He never became famous. He became a teacher in one of the schools Mr. Hawthorne had built. He taught children about math and reading, but also about faith and love and believing in miracles. And every time someone asked him about the miracles, about how he healed baby Thomas and Mrs. Hawthorne, Samuel would give the same answer he had given from the beginning. "I did not heal anyone. God did. I just believed he could. I just asked him, and he answered because he loves us." One evening, many years later, old Mr. Hawthorne sat in his garden with Samuel, who was now a grown man with children of his own. They watched the sunset paint the sky in colors of gold and pink. Do you know what the real miracle was? Mr. Hawthorne asked. Samuel looked at him curiously. What do you mean? The miracle was not just that my son lived. The miracle was that I learned to see. I learned that the things I thought mattered did not matter at all, and the things I ignored were everything. He smiled, his old eyes bright with tears. You taught me that faith is the real treasure. That love is the real power. That God is the real answer. Samuel put his hand on the old man's shoulder. And you taught me that anyone can change, that it is never too late to believe, that miracles happen not just in bodies, but in hearts. They sat together in comfortable silence as the stars began to appear, one by one, like promises in the darkening sky. The mansion still stood on the hill, gleaming white in the moonlight, but it was no longer a fortress of pride. It was a lighthouse of hope, a place where heaven touched earth, where the rich learned from the poor, where miracles were not just possible, but expected. Because when faith is real, when love is true, when hearts are humble, anything can happen. Believe, and miracles will come.